we're joined in the studio by Oshea Orchid, and she is an attorney with SOM and the managing partner of their Val Verde office and a resident here in the Santa Clarita Valley. And so it's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah, and first I want to do it. And I know you're involved with the Chiquita issue, but before we get into all of that, let's find out a little bit about you. Let's find out about you've been living here and a resident. I love when we have locals that are representing local issues.
Yeah, so I moved here during the pandemic in 2020. I actually had lived in Santa Monica, and I found during a pandemic living in the Castaic area is a much nicer place to be. I also have horses, and so as I had a horse in the valley, I was going out daily when I couldn't spend time with humans, spending time with animals, and realized it'd be much better if the horse and I could live together. So we bought our first place in Castaic, which is in Val Verde, which is a 17-acre place where the horses and everybody was spending a great time during the pandemic. And actually, my home there, it's more than 2 miles from the landfill. So when we first moved here, we didn't realize there was really any issue.
Yeah, and having the horses, I agree with you. There's a lot of. I was involved in the building of Castaic High School, and one of the things we took into consideration was the landscape, the people, the area, and that school was originally meant to have, and it's still on the books. Horse trails, animals, they could get up there that way, and the people could enjoy it. It was truly supposed to be a community center, if you would. So tell us a little bit about the firm.
So Seth the Orchid Minor is our law firm, or SOM as you referred to it. We do all types of cases on behalf of plaintiffs. A lot of cases that we have involve environmental justice, civil rights, cases for workers. We do discrimination cases like pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. And we have a lot of cases that are against government agencies. We've kind of been one of the leaders in the LA area in taking on cases against the government, which many firms often don't want to do.
Yeah, it's it get a little pricey after a while. They seem to think that they have all the money they need to have to fight these kind of things.
Yeah, so that's the challenge with government agencies is often they don't, like a private company, evaluate the risk, evaluate
True.
the smart thing to do, and the way to save money is often to resolve things in early stage. A lot of the government agencies will fight things out because it's not their money, it's our taxpayer money.
Yeah, I think that's forgotten at times. I really do. And I'm involved in it, and I think it's forgotten at times. All right, so let's get to the Chiquita issue. How long have you been involved in that issue now?
So, it really started with me just being involved with the community generally and talking to neighbors. And in the summer of 2023, people just started saying to me, hey, this is getting really bad. It's an out of control situation and we have to do something. And they turned to me and said, you're the lawyer in our community. What can we do? So my response was,
just fix it.
Well, not just a lawyer, but one who also is kind of specializes with the environmental kind of issues as well. So it almost feels like this.
And you live there.
Is perfect.
Yeah, it kind of felt to me like good thing I happened to be here at this time because what had happened actually for years is the community who was there had really close to the landfill. They've known this is an issue for a long time. Back in 2017, when the landfill expanded, they fought it and they said, this is completely unacceptable. People were already having health symptoms. People were already connecting serious health problems to the landfill and to smelling the gases. And so those people in Val Verde have spoken up for years, but they didn't have an attorney. And so, they were literally raising funds, doing pancake breakfasts to try to pay an attorney to fight. And you just can't win a fight with a landfill with a pancake breakfast. It's just not going to work, no matter how many pancake breakfasts you do. So when they told me how much money they'd raised and what they'd been through, it was clear to me, like, you're not going to win this fight with those kind of resources. You just need a lot more resources. And then the other thing that had happened is a lot of firms that did have resources had actually marketed to the community and talked to people about fighting the landfill. But their evaluation was there weren't enough people impacted for it to be worth it. So in 2023, when I was evaluating the case, I had a different evaluation because I lived there. So it started with people said, I'm concerned about this. I'm like, well, you're my neighbors. So whether I think it's worth it financially or not, let's find out what's going on. And it's the kind of thing where I'd often, like a friend or a neighbor, I'd take their case, even if it's not like the best financial decision. I might just want to help them out. So I start interviewing people, and I get through about person 10, let's say, on the phone, and they're describing all the same thing. They're getting these headaches, they're getting nosebleeds, they're having respiratory issues. And as the headaches get described over and over again, the headaches that won't go away. Not just like, oh, I got a headache one day. It's like day after day I wake up and these headaches won't go away. And then a little light bulb went off for me. I realized that 2 weeks prior I had been Googling, what in the air could be giving me this headache that won't go away? Because for the first time in my life, I was having a headache for more than a week. And every day I'd think, well, maybe if I just drink enough water or I do something else, it'll go away. But it didn't go away. And then when I realized that my home in Val Verde is on the far end, at the very back of the canyon, and Chiquita Canyon's on the other side. So there's 3,000 people between me and this landfill, over 2 miles away. If I've had the same headache these people are having, that means a significant amount of people are impacted. And so once I realized that, I hurried up as fast as I could and got the lawsuit filed.
So yeah, not just going over and like, oh, that it's not worth it to try to take on the case. Now it's personal.
Anyhow, but we've got Oshea Orchid in studio with us. She's a partner at SOM and the managing partner of their Val Verde office, and she is working on the Chiquita landfill lawsuits. And we were talking about, I told you during the break, I said, the flashpoint seemed to be, or the commonality that started this was the headaches.
Yeah, so that's the most common symptom. We did a health survey with over 1,000 people. In fact, it may be as many as 2,000 people responding at this point in the community. And the most common health symptom was 85% of people reporting getting these headaches. And these are headaches that are not able to be explained for another reason. Many people in the community, not just for the headaches, but other conditions, have been going to their doctors for quite some time, trying to figure out what's wrong with them. There's also weird things like people getting rashes, children getting bloody noses, a lot of people dealing with nausea, stomach issues. And those are all kind of the first symptoms that people see, the most common symptoms. What's starting to get really concerning is the amount of people that are having more serious health symptoms, people that have been exposed long term.
Yeah, because you say you wake up with a headache or something. You mentioned it in the last segment where it's like, okay, maybe I just need to drink more water. Maybe I'm just dehydrated or something, and then more cases start popping up, and suddenly it's like, okay, maybe this is not just headaches. Maybe it's actually environmental, and it really reminds me of when the methane gas leak happened over at Porter Ranch.
Yeah, it's a really similar situation, and why it's really important to compare our situation with Porter Ranch is the way that the government has handled it. So in Porter Ranch, that gas leak, I believe it happened October of 2015, and by December, they were already getting a state of emergency, getting relief to residents, relocating families, and relocating schools happened as well. And this is really important because all through last year, everyone who's in charge, who has come out to our community, all of the elected officials have called for a state of emergency. And I want to just kind of go over some of those agencies or groups. So we have the Castaic Area Town Council. That is our most local elected people. Castaic Area Town Council called for a state of emergency. We have the Community Advisory Committee, which advises the county regarding the landfill issues. Those are also community members who are in the community. They're getting monthly reports from the landfill, doing community meetings, hearing from residents, and they have called for a state of emergency to get relief to residents. They actually met last night and still were discussing the need for relief for residents and the ability for people to relocate. We also have the Val Verde Civic Association, which is Val Verde's same thing, our elected local leaders who have also called for a state of emergency. Then we had last year, Mike Garcia, our congressman, came out, met with community members, called for a state of emergency. We also had Pilar Shivo, our assembly member, came out. She actually stayed in a resident's home for the evening. She did a video diary, actually, which was really interesting. But she, just being there for one night, in a home on Lincoln Avenue, which is in one of the most affected areas where we're hearing there's a cancer cluster. But she stayed there and immediately had impacts. In the morning, she had a bloody nose, and she also called for a state of emergency, not once, but twice last year. And
if I can interrupt you
yeah.
for a minute, what's the holdup?
Yeah, because I
we
was
get
just
that? I mean,
I was
we
just
don't have a
thinking
whole
that
bunch of time,
you know
but-
with Porter Ranch, you had the methane gas, and that was bad in its own regard. But this one, we have a landfill, and it's not just methane gas; it's all of the trash and the particulates of that trash. It's noxious. Like
Yeah.
it's even
And
worse.
you've had elected officials from all sides of the aisle come up and so what's the holdup, I guess, is in your opinion?
Well, and that is my question for Catherine Barger, our supervisor with the board. She's also the chair of the Board of Supervisors. Because we don't have a city status in
Right.
Castaic, our local agency is the Board of Supervisors. So Catherine Barger is basically the mayor of Castaic, and needs to step up and call for a state of emergency. I am at a loss for her real reasons for not doing it. What she has stated publicly many times, and what they've done in their messaging, has been to say, we have everything we need. We don't need a state of emergency because everything is being done that can be done.
What happens in a state of emergency in this case? What would you get more out of it than just simply her or the Board of Supervisors being involved?
So there's a lot of things that can come from a state of emergency, and we're going to be seeing that with the situation with the wildfires right now. There are going to be probably multiple state of emergency declarations for those people impacted, and certainly this is clearly an emergency with the wildfires. Similarly, it's clearly an emergency for the people living near Chiquita Canyon. Some of the things that would come from a state of emergency would be things like, short-term housing, maybe longer-term housing. I think that an obvious solution, in my view, is while they are trying to clean up the situation at Chiquita Canyon and get hazardous waste off-site and out of proximity to the community, there should be an option for people to be relocated during that time, just like in Porter Ranch.
Well, I've talked to people about it because of my official position to find out what it's going to take or what it is or what's causing it. And depending on who you talk with, there's a little bit of a nuance differences. And but the part that scares me the most is that several people in that kind of business have told me it's not an easy fix. And it could take quite some time to clean it up, if you can clean it up at all for real, because of how long it's been there.
It's very concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, and I think, on the bright side, we have the landfill no longer accepting trash as of the first of the year. I think that's the first step, is we stop putting fuel on a fire. We've got a serious situation with this underground smoldering happening. And my understanding is it's, the reaction itself is producing so many gallons of additional hazardous waste, every week, that to get it all out of there is going to be extremely challenging. But I think it's critical. I think that's why there needs to be a state of emergency. When I think about that has now become hazardous waste in close proximity to a community, to people that are at risk, with children, schools, etc. It seems to me like we would put all of our resources into an environmental disaster like this, and I mean resources not just county level, but also state, federal.
Well, I don't know why somebody should petition Governor Newsom maybe to step in and deal with it.
So
He's got a lot going on, but still, I would do it.
we have been. So
Okay.
he has certainly received some letters from the community and contacts also from our other elected officials who have tried to step in. I think the challenge that we have is procedurally, under the government code, the state of emergency needs to be proclaimed by the local agency first, if it's like all within their jurisdiction. Then the state can look at it and also declare a state
Provide
of
more
emergency.
services and resources.
Yeah, the idea with a state of emergency is it starts, the local agency says there's a state of emergency when they don't have the resources at their level to do everything that's needed. That's why Barger keeps saying we have all the resources. And I think what she's meaning is there's resources like the different agencies and the regulatory agencies have come in and they're dealing with the issues and they're working with the landfill. What she's forgetting is the resources that are needed for residents.
So obviously you'll be coming back to talk about this more because we're up against the clock on this. And quickly, if people want to get a hold of you that live in that area, think they're affected by it, how do they get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is on our website, which is somlawyers.com. They can also call us. Our phone number is 855-588-7664.